So you can see here a lot of tweets by our president, Donald J. Trump, and this just goes to show how political figures and news sites use social media to spread information to the masses. But there's one phrase or two words that you can see that is common in all of these tweets, and that is fake news. And I want to talk about fake news today a little bit, kind of talk about the history and where it is now and how we can combat fake news. But there's one site I want to talk about in particular, and that is Facebook, because Facebook is the largest social media site that news is spread around. People share news and whatnot. So I'm going to focus on Facebook for you today. And my name is Matthew Williamson, and this presentation is titled The War on Information: How Can We Stop Fake News? So I want to talk just a little bit about the history of fake news, because some people might think that this is a recent thing, and it seems like it just because social media has blown it up so much that it seems like this is just now becoming a big issue, but that's just not true. So this is King George II, and while he was the king, there were a couple of different big things that happened regarding what we would call fake news. So the first one was in 1693. There was a publisher that published a couple of articles that were considered what we call sedition now, and that is conduct inciting people to rebel against authority. So these articles were trying to get people to rebel against the king, basically. And then there was another instance that happened that there was a story going around that the king was ill, and that simply wasn't true. But they were saying that to try to destabilize the government and try to just kind of, I guess, make a rebellion happen. Wasn't necessarily a rebellion, but it is in kind of the same category as sedition would be. And then I just want to talk about sedition and sensationalism. I talked about sedition a little bit already, but sensationalism is the use of shocking or exciting stories at the expense of accuracy. And I think that's a lot of the fake news that we see today, just because news sites need to be able to get those clicks. Our attention spans are so short, especially on the internet now, that they have to use any means necessary to get our attention so they can make money. So they use shocking or exciting stories at the expense of accuracy with headlines or stuff within the article to garner our attention, and so they're able to make money. And just the last point, this has been used all throughout history from the 1600s and probably well before that, all the way through World War I. There were a lot of fake news stories and whatnot, and all the way up to today. Just a few points on why people are spreading fake news. Number one is, I talked about a little bit, is ad revenue. The best can make $5,000 to $10,000 per month from ads on Facebook. And why is this working? It's working because 62% of adults get their news online, and 42% alone get their news on Facebook, which came from the Pew Research Center. And this is just talking a little bit more about sensationalism, I guess, but Daniel Petty is a writer, and there's a quote that I thought was really great, and it says, "Social media strategists in the news business know that stories that elicit a strong emotional reaction draw the all-important click on a story." And I think that just goes to show the kind of tactics that these news sites need to use to be able to get our attention and make money. So moving on to why this is a problem. And this is a problem because fake news stories have a much larger impact than one might think. People might think that fake news isn't a big deal, that most people can tell the difference between what's fake and what's not. And in reality, the people that think that probably can't tell themselves whether it's fake or not. And there are just a large volume of articles that go around that are not factual or have some aspect to them that isn't 100% factual. And this is also a problem, though. The way that they do this is the headlines look just like any other article, so it's hard for people to tell the difference between them. And the last is what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. It's the swaying of political opinions, but not just political. All of your opinions can be swayed by fake news. But one of the big issues that we have seen recently is the swaying of political opinions, particularly in the 2016 election, where it has been found that Facebook articles were Facebook articles that are fake were swirling Facebook to attempt to sway the opinions of voters on which candidate they should choose. And this quote here by Michael Castillo from CNBC just kind of goes over that a little bit. This is a quote from him, and the company that he's referring to here is Facebook. So it says the company said, that is Facebook said, that it found several instances of information operations, which is a term for governments and organizations who attempt to sway political opinion by spreading fake news and other nefarious tactics. So, how do we solve the problem? Well, I want to talk a little bit about the tactics being used today and some of the possible new tactics. So, the tactics being used today are demonetization of articles, taking down articles, and banning accounts. I think all kind of go in the same area, just because it's really, really difficult to kind of regulate all of those things. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to go through these accounts, go through these articles, and determine whether they should be taken down or whether they should be banned. One of the things that they've implemented that has worked to a better degree is they have a report button. So if somebody's reading an article and they believe that it might be fake, or there's just something not right about it, or if it's offensive or in any way or anything like that, they can report it. So if a article gets a lot of reports, they can go to that article and say, okay, we need to take a look at this, and then they can determine whether it needs to be taken down or whether it needs to be banned. Another thing that they're doing right now is, well, they've already done, I suppose, is changing the algorithm, and this was talked a lot about a couple of years ago, and people weren't sure how it was going to be done or what they were going to change it to, but most people agreed that their algorithm for how articles are pushed, to use a lack of a better term, pushed on Facebook, the way that they're doing that needed to be changed, and so they changed it, and instead of pushing news articles, they started pushing news videos, which works in one way, I think, because people are actually, not necessarily, people aren't necessarily seeing somebody, but it could be a little bit harder for these fake news, people that are spreading fake news to spread it, just because it takes more time and more effort to put a video together than it would to put an article together. And it still doesn't work that well, in my opinion, but it could work a little bit. But basically, the tactics being used today, to sum it up, are working to a certain degree, but not very well, and there need to be changes. So possible new tactics, the first one I'm going to go over is actually the second one, just because it kind of fits in with what's being used today, and that's finding a new way to ban articles and accounts. One thing that I know people could use is banning an IP address if they find that an account is obviously spreading fake news and it's hurting, it's something that's really, really not good. They could ban the IP address that was used to spread the account that's hooked to that, and the articles that came from that. And Facebook is a technological giant, and they have a lot of technological giants right around them. And I think it's definitely possible for them to find a new way to permanently ban accounts and whatnot. So I think that could be one route, but again, that kind of falls under the other category of the tactics being used today, where it's difficult and it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. The thing that I think will work the best, and I think should be done regardless, is educate users of social media on how to identify fake news. And I think this is really important to me, because Facebook is a platform, And I don't think Facebook should be heavily regulated in any way. I don't think they should have to take down articles and ban accounts. Facebook is a platform, and people should be able to share whatever they think is important. So I don't think it's a great idea for them to ban all kinds of accounts and articles. I think the thing that should be done is education and educate people on how to differentiate a fake article from a real article, or a real video from a fake video. And also maybe educate people on how these sites put together these articles and how they get them around the internet, and it will help people to make a better decision on what articles to trust and what articles to not trust. So these are some of the issues that I've seen, and some of the ways that they're trying to solve it that aren't working well. But I think the number one thing that we should be looking at is the education of users, because whether Facebook is able to get these articles down or not, if we educate the people, it's not going to matter. They're going to be able to tell the difference themselves, and I think that's really important. So that's all I have for you all today. I just want to ask you to possibly reflect on the history of fake news and where we are right now, and reflect on maybe some of the articles that you've seen and were kind of fishy, and how they got your attention and whatnot. But most importantly, possibly educate yourself on fake news articles, and you might be able to better tell whether somebody's trying to sway your opinion with fake information or factual information. Thank you.